vegetarians need not apply. The 21st century butcher has many faces. A grim reaper, a carcass processor, a meat cutter, a safety inspector, and a salesman. He turns livestock into steak, hamburger, and sausage. He even makes house calls. Now, the butcher on Modern Marvels. Each year in the United States, massive feedlots schedule more than 135 million head of livestock for their appointments with the butcher. For the modern butcher, the knife is still the foundation for every job. And most butchers rely on just a couple of basic knives: the butcher or steak knife and the boning knife. One thing has remained constant since ancient times: the need for a sharp knife. One time-honored method of checking the sharpened edge is the paper test.
A sharp knife is very, very important in this business. When your knife could do this, you know you have a real good edge on it. You could cut anything.
If you look at the cutting edge of a knife under a magnifying glass, it'll look almost like a hacksaw blade with a series of teeth. When you use the knife and it starts to become dull, the first thing that happens are these little teeth, or as we call them in the factory, feathers. These little feathers bend over to the left or the right side of the cutting edge, and your knife becomes dull, and you notice right away that it's not cutting the way it did when it was factory fresh. In that case, you use a butcher steel, and you go through a process of hand steeling your blade, where you draw the knife blade along a hardened steel rod. What happens is that these little feathers are stood up straight. They're realigned.
While basic knife shapes haven't changed much in thousands of years, manufacturing methods are certainly different today. The Dexter Russell Company in Southbridge, Massachusetts, is the largest manufacturer of professional cutlery in the United States. The process of making a butcher knife starts with raw steel.
Steel is iron with carbon added, and when the percentage of carbon approaches 1%, you start to get steels that are good for making cutlery. We're looking for a steel that has, first of all, enough carbon in it so that we can heat treat it.
At Dexter Russell, the knife blanks are heated to 1500 degrees, then rapidly cooled down in a specially formulated oil bath.
To me, I always tell people the steel is the heart of the knife, but the heat treatment gives it its soul. The trick to heat treating is to elevate the temperature of the steel so that it changes its physical state.
Subjecting the knife blank to rapid cooling leaves the blade in an extremely brittle state.
So there's a final step to the heat treating process that's called tempering. Tempering gives steel its flexibility, its springiness. We do that by putting the carbon steel into a furnace at 550 degrees and soaking it at that temperature for 2 hours.
The classic image of the butcher includes a formidable-looking blade known as the cleaver. But 20th century technology made the cleaver obsolete.
The cleaver was used much more because they probably didn't have a bandsaw. What they did, they used a steak knife to cut through the meat, then they used the cleaver to cut off the bone.